Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Matteau, you have tabled with this committee a number of documents that we haven't had the opportunity to review that appear to contradict aspects of the findings of the Auditor General's report. Will you agree to, in addition to tabling those documents with this committee, to also turn those documents over to the RCMP?
Mr. Chair, point of order.
I have nothing to hide, but I don't know.
Again, Mr. Two powers that are very well known in the Constitution. We're mixing judicial. If the RCMP wants documents from André-Lise Méthode, I know they can just get a search warrant very quickly if they feel to do so. But this tactic, c'est du salissage. Encore une fois, c'est du salissage.
It's just, dirty politics.
Back to you, got 4.5 minutes. The documents will be publicly available. So whether the witness wants to turn them over or not, the RCMP is going to be able to review them through our committee. They are being tabled. That we distributed to you all. They're publicly available. I hope this afternoon. You have the floor, Mr. Cooper, 4.5 minutes.
Well, I'd invite the witness to answer my question.
I think I have put everything on the table here. I have nothing to do with this. I do not understand your question.
I said, would you manage to table a bunch of documents with this committee? Will you also just hand them over to the RCMP? Yes or no?
If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them. I have nothing to hide. Neither from you.
Oui ou non?
If they have questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
So I take it the answer is no.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Well, I asked whether...
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Point of order. Go ahead, please.
I have sat here and I have watched the Conservatives go after our very esteemed witness here.
Mr. Cooper, I'm going to hear Ms. Khalid's point of order.
And
yes, Ms. Khalid.
Further to my colleague, Mr. Drouin's point, it is very unfortunate that we're trying to interfere in the RCMP's investigation. If there is one, if the RCMP wants documents, I'm sure that they have many ways to reach out to the witness directly to get those documents. I would really appreciate if Mr. Cooper can stick to what is the mandate of our committee and not be irrelevant and not be irrelevant.
Ladies,
please do not talk over me, Mr. Cooper.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss
yes,
Khalid,
you have done it quite deliberately, Mr. Cooper.
Ms. Khalid, I'm going to turn things back over to Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper, why don't you move on to your question? You have just over 3 minutes left.
Question. I didn't hear a yes from Ms. Matteau. So moving on, is it correct that your Cycle Capital companies, 4 of them, received $10.4 million from SDTC? Did I understand your testimony correctly?
I told you that I recused myself. 4 companies I was the one to say.
Questions, you do your best to provide an answer, and I'm simply seeking clarification that there were 4 Cycle Capital companies that received
Mr. Cooper, hold on a second. I'll give you the floor. No. As counsel, you're here to work. Est-ce que ça marche, oui? Oh, no, okay, yes, you're here to, that's fine, okay, as long as, pardon me? No, I know she wasn't subpoenaed. No, I agree, and you're, whoa. Whoa, okay, everyone calm down. Everyone calm down. Everyone calm down. You're here. Okay, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Drouin as well.
I would say it outside. I would say it outside because I simply...
I'm going to suspend this meeting for 4 minutes. Mr. Cooper, for his remaining 3 minutes, I'm just going to update everyone because I know there's some questions about timing with question period coming up in about 40 minutes. It is my intention to have us done by 2 o'clock. We're going to finish this round, which includes Mr. Cooper's remaining time, Ms. Yip. Then we'll do the fourth and final round, which takes about 25 minutes, at which point we'll end the meeting. So, Mr. Cooper, you have the floor again. And just, colleagues, let me just say as well before I begin, when we interrupt one another, not only does it make it hard on the interpreters, it is distracting to the witnesses as well, and I think to our audience. We do rotate here. The witness, I think, has been, been asked some tough questions, but also been given additional time to speak in subsequent rounds. I think that has worked well, and I'd ask that we all respect one another. Mr. Cooper, back to you for 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the time that we've had, I have confirmed that you did testify that $10.7 million, not $10.4 million, went to 4 cycle capital companies while you served on the board. I would draw your attention to Section 12 of the Canada Foundation for Sustainable Development Technology Act that states that no director shall profit or gain any income or acquire any property from the foundation or its activities. Isn't that precisely what happened when your cycle capital companies received $10.4 million from SDTC?
Listen, I recused myself from those conversations. It's not 10.7, it's 10.4 million from 4 companies over 5 years. And I recused myself from those conversations to not be in the room.
With the greatest respect, I didn't accuse you of not recusing yourself. I simply cited a section of the SDTC Act that is very clear that no director shall profit or gain any income or acquire any property from the foundation or its activities, and yet 4 cycle capital companies received $10.4 million. I would submit that that is in violation of the Act. And don't take my word for it. I would cite paragraph 6.47 of the Auditor General's report that states, for the duration of a director's term, a director buying or selling securities of an ultimate recipient or being compensated by or holding an investment in an ultimate recipient receiving funding risks not following Section 12.2 of the Act. Those are the findings of the Auditor General. So are you disputing the findings of the Auditor General?
I followed the rules that I was given as a board member. I followed the rules to the letter. I'm an engineer, not a lawyer, and I did what I was told to do. If I was not appointed to the board, Jim Buzzley would have had to refuse the appointment.
Matot, did you read the Act in the 6 years that you sat on the board? Did you bother to read the Act?
I was 5 years and a quarter on the board, and when I began, I read all the documentation, and the way things were managed is I was asked to declare any conflict and recuse myself, just like any company with ties to the government, and I followed the rules.
Ms. Yip, you have the floor for 5 minutes as well.
I am disappointed and disgusted by the Conservatives' behavior and would ask that Mr. Cooper apologize. As such, I'd like to move the following motion, that the committee call for the member for St. Albert, Edmonton to apologize personally for his blatant defamatory accusation against Ms. Meadow.
Have you sent that to the clerk?
Yes.
Do it right now without there being a motion. I think it would be in order, but what's your reasoning for being?
I'd be asking the member to apologize. So I'm going to have a quick ruling on this, which can be accepted or challenged. Ms. Yip, I'm going to move, and hear my reasoning before the challenge. I'm going to move this out of order. You're welcome to bring it up at a later time. The reason is, if we go down this path, I'm probably going to excuse Madame Méthode, and we will bring her back at another time. So I'm hoping we can deal with this. That's okay, Mr. Durant. I'll hear your reasoning. I view it as something that is tangential and not a matter at hand. But Mr. Durant, go ahead. You have the floor.
Monsieur le Président, vous allez savoir.
Mr. Chair, there are many precedents, and I'll ask you to examine those at the Official Languages Committee in recent months, but there are many precedents. Now, your party even presented a very similar motion regarding a witness. So you has said that, but there's inconsistency, and the clerk gave the opinion to the chair that the motion was in order, and there was almost a 2-month debate. Now we're being told that the motion is out of order.
I will challenge the chair.
Very good. Clerk, could you please call the roll call on this? And you might want to explain what the vote is for. So, yes.
Of the chair be sustained. Ms. Bradford.
No.
Monsieur Drouin.
No.
Mr. Erskine-Smith.
No.
Ms. Khalid. No. Ms. Yip.
No.
Mr. Macaulay.
Yes.
Mr. Perkins.
Yes.
Madame Saint-Clair-Desgagnés.
Oui.
Mr. Blaney. Miss Blaney, sorry. My apologies.
Oui. Yes.
I don't have a sub for Mr. Nader. Four yeas, 5 nays.
Very good. Now, has the motion been sent in to the clerk?
Yes, sir.
It has been. If you would, I'll just suspend for 2 minutes. If I can just have the witness just hold on for a little bit, and the clerk will distribute. I'll come right back in 2 or 3 minutes. I'm bringing the meeting back into order. I'm going to turn to Ms. Yip to take the floor on your motion, please. Then I have Mr. Perkins and Mr. Durian. Ms. Yip, you have the floor. Si vous pouvez nous donner quelques minutes, on va voir comment ça va ici.
Could you please give us a few minutes?
Around the room if you like in the meantime.
Okay.
Ms. Yip.
So the motion is in response to the accusations that our witness, Ms. Mito, is unwilling to cooperate with the RCMP. She has already stated that she is a cooperative, and I don't see why she has to go through the RCMP. And I think Mr. Cooper should be apologizing for his tone and tenor of attacking the witness. And so we're waiting for you to apologize.
Thank you. I have a speaking list that's ready to go. Thank you, Ms. Yip. Mr. Perkins, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to adjourn this motion, the debate on this motion.
I have a motion to adjourn debate on the motion. Could you call the question, clerk?
Shall the motion of Mr. Perkins be adopted? Ms. Bradford. It's to adjourn debate.
It's to adjourn the debate on this motion.
No.
Monsieur Drouin.
No.
Mr. Erskine-Smith.
No.
Ms. Khalid. No. Ms. Yip. No. Mr. Cooper.
Yes?
Mr. McCauley.
Yes.
Mr. Perkins.
Yes.
Madame Sinclair Desgagnés.
Oui.
Ms. Blaney.
Yes.
Five yeas, 5 nays.
Très bien. Je vais demander à Madame Méthode.
I'm going to ask Ms. Mito to please take her seat. And now I would like to come back to Ms. Yip.
4.5 minutes, please. The floor is yours again,
Okay.
Ms. Yip.
Let me just see. Madame Mito, with all that's happened, I don't think that you were given really the opportunity to defend yourself. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Je crois que dans mon...
I believe that in my opening statement, I said everything that was important, and you will get that statement, and you also will get the detailed table. And that way, Mr. Perkins will get all the detailed answers on the list. You also have the document on the infrastructure bank that explains my conduct for each of the meetings. I know that Mr. Perkins was interested in that, and it's a pleasure to share that confidential information with you. In addition, I reiterate my desire and my interest to have an in-depth dialogue, including with my detractors, so that we can discuss the facts and do this on behalf of Canadian entrepreneurs in new technologies. As MPs, you represent people, entrepreneurs. People are trying to build their businesses, and it will always be in my best interests to continue to assist them and advancing them, especially as they are technological entrepreneurs. But I don't think that I am here to defend myself. I've only the truth to tell, which is very simple.
What have been the impacts of the continued conservative politicization of SDTC on the clean tech industry?
C'est difficile pour moi de vous parler.
It's difficult for me to tell you about the entire industry because I don't have an ongoing discussion with the entire industry on a daily basis. What I can tell you is there is a concern because SDTC is a program that's existed for numerous years and has helped advance things. So there is concern. I could tell you about the impact that these debates have had on me. It's really not easy to be attacked with lies. It is very difficult when you've built your reputation over 25, 30, 50 years, and you've done it with your heart, and your family has sacrificed to be demolished by lies in the public arena. And seeing as I'm a person who truly believes that this dialogue needs to move forward, I extend my hand to Mr. Perkins. I often travel to Halifax. We have businesses in your very lovely riding, and we're there to help, and I am here to help you, your entrepreneurs, to perform. And I will never hold you anything against you, Mr. Perkins, but you have kept me up many nights, and you have made me feel diminished. My spouse has never seen me in the state, but I remain here to help because I truly believe in what I do. I have dedicated my life to this cause, and it is not for political interests or tweets on X that I am going, to drop this. As we say in my family, in my community in Baie-Comeau, this kind of thing only makes you stronger.
I am sorry that you have already stated several times that you feel that your reputation has been tarnished. And previously you had started to say something about yourself being a woman, and then you were cut off. Did you?
Oui. Alors souvent, j'ai eu l'impression que j'ai été attaquée.
Yes, I've often been under the impression that I was being attacked because I was a woman, a Quebecer, an environmentalist, because I was known. I don't know. But if ever one day Mr. Perkins wants to go out for coffee, it will be my pleasure to talk with him and to understand what his profound reasons are for attacking a Canadian woman devoted to building businesses.
Mr. Perkins, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
The Auditor General raised almost $400 million of funds that were either conflicted or spent outside the terms of the agreement. That's my concern, on behalf of taxpayers. My concern, I'm sorry if it offends you, that by your own admission, your companies received $10.4 million while you're on the board. But that's not my concern that you feel offended by it. My concern is that you clearly were in a conflict of interest. Now, I want to go in a different vein. On your time on the board, you, according to the Lobbyist Register, you lobbied government 51 times. Now, I don't know if you were in the meetings. It's under your name. Between 2016 and 2021 for various aspects of STTC's needs. 47 times on those registrations prior to his election, Stephen Guilbeault is listed. Were you both doing the lobbying together, or was Mr. Guilbeault doing it on his own?
Premièrement,
First, those meetings followed all of the lobbying rules. And if you've read about them, it's because they were declared. And Stephen Guilbeault and I traveled across the country subsequent to a study done showing underfunding. Believe it or not, we met with politicians in Alberta. This was before Stephen Guilbeault was in politics. We traveled to Halifax, Ontario, Quebec, federal. Could you please leave?
I was very... Well, so it's true. He was in lobbying 47 times. 11 were with the Prime Minister's office, including Mr. Butts, 2 with Minister Baines, actually 6 times with future Minister Champagne. So it appears that you had a lot of high-level access in Ottawa to those folks. You mentioned Mr. Guilbeault's interest as some sort of compensation. He lists it still, that he has it on his public disclosure of conflict of interest. So since the time that you were on the board until recently, the value of your company has gone up 6 times. So is it fair to say that Mr. Guilbeault's investments, whatever those are, has gone up 6 times?
OK.
Let's settle this very simply. Mr. Guilbeault has passive interest, and when he left, his interest ended and the value has not increased. You are confusing asset management and values. Second point, Mr. Perkins, you were at the CIB when you granted employees at CIB, when they managed funds, the right to passive interest. And Mr. Guilbeault got the exact same treatment as any advisor for any capital risk fund.
Of interest in 2023, which list an interest in Cycle Capital, is incorrect, that he made a false disclosure of conflict of interest?
Monsieur Guilbeault.
Mr. Guilbeault has to make those declarations, given that he had those interests. It's a kind of a performance bonus, so he has to declare that. It's his responsibility.
He owns, not what he used to own in some time before he was elected. It's what he currently owns, and he's still listed.
Il y a toujours, pour répondre à votre question, monsieur.
To answer your question, Mr. Perkins, he's always, had what he says, because we are the ones to provide him with the information each year, and it's reviewed by our...
Declare it. I'll move on. How many investments and what's the value that Brookfield has made in your funds?
Où?
Brookfield Management.
Ils étaient des investisseurs de notre...
They were investors in our first fund, which underperformed compared to the current.
On all your press releases as an industrial partner. What's an industrial partner?
Les partenaires industriels.
Industrial partners, of which we have several, L'Oréal, Hydro-Québec, Alouette, Alcan, Brookfield, are private corporate businesses or public on the markets that decide to invest in investment funds. And they are
A financing partner on your funds. In 2017...
A very quick question.
Non, attendez.
Can I? May I?
As time
Monsieur Perkins a le temps pour une dernière question.
from you, then I'm going to go to Ms. Bradford. Mr. Perkins, a short question, no preamble, please.
In 2017, you made an investment with a Chinese state-owned enterprise. They're an investor with you, and you have an office in China. Are you following the Chinese National Security Act that requires those who operate in China to spy and steal technology?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. As much as I have no idea what the heck that has to do with SDTC. If the member wants to put a motion forward to go after those, I'm sure we could, but I don't see how this relates to our study.
Madame Metellati, réponse ou...
I'm not a Chinese spy.
You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Order. Ms. Bradford, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, Madam Tho, thank you so much for your patience. And I'm so sorry the stress this has caused you and your family. I know you were into committee about a year ago, and here you are back again. And I hope people watching at home don't think that if they step forward to serve on a board of directors, that this could be their fate sometime down the line, because I hate to think that that might be the case and preclude people from serving in this important work. So I just wanted to give you a chance to finish your answer to Mr. Perkins' questions that he cut you off on. So if you want to complete that answer that you would have said.
Well, I'd like to repeat. We followed all the rules. I recused myself. I declared all of my real and potential conflicts of interest. It is in writing everywhere. I've added to what the Auditor General did. Mr. Perkins, I will reiterate that, yes, we did have activities in China, and we managed Chinese money in China. We have withdrawn since. I have to say that the situation in China has greatly evolved in the last 10 years. And as an experienced business person, and just like any other one, we've done business with many different players in the world, but our activities there have started. And I would like to reiterate, I am not a Chinese spy. I'm a woman, feminist, environmentalist, francophone, and I also believe in abortion.
That clarification. It's now in the Hansard record. There you go. So now, as part of the investigation, has the RCMP reached out to you? No. Okay. We hear falsely that this fund being coined as a green slush fund, that is money set aside in a pot to sit there and not be used, which we know is false, as over $3 billion in revenue has been generated from companies that have received SDTC funding. Can you speak to some of these funding decisions, how the board decided to provide funding over the long term, and the recusal process that was needed each time a project came in front of the board for a funding proposal?
OK, donc le processus était très simple.
The process was very simple. There were eligibility criteria, and the SDTC team did an analysis. And I repeat, these people were competent. They did a detailed analysis. And once once SDTC determined the company was eligible, then it came to the PRC committee, the Project Review Committee. And we did not finance businesses. Each project had criteria, and we would assess whether the criteria had been met, and then we assessed the quality of what was presented. Often, when there was debate and files were admissible, but sometimes the committee found that the file wasn't strong enough, so members would suggest the proposal be enhanced so that we'd have a winning project. The purpose of SDTC is to build winning companies. It's not to finance companies. It's to give companies an opportunity to be winners in a competitive world environment in technologies. It's also to solidify intellectual property, to enable businesses to compete on a worldwide market. So these would be the conversations we'd have. Once projects were admitted, a contract was negotiated, but that was not the members of the board. That would be the SDTC team, and they were competent. They negotiated the contracts with milestones, so specific goals for each one of the companies. There are companies that lost their funding because they could not attain the goals, or they got a portion of their funding only. There was very rigorous follow-up. And I think that is what needs to be understood. The board of directors is just one element in a big process. So for businesses, it could take a year and a half before having access to an SDTC grant, because the process was very demanding. This is what I observed over the 4 years I was there. I left, it was more than 3 years ago, but during the period I was there, those were my observations.
Time for one brief question, but you do risk cutting off your colleague if you go long, but you have the floor if you like.
Can you just briefly say some of the unique challenges clean tech startups in Quebec face compared to other regions in Canada, and how was SDTC able to address these?
Je dirais pas.
I wouldn't say that Quebec businesses are different from the rest of Canada. My observation is that challenges are similar for everyone. These companies don't have profits. They're developing. So all of these clean tech companies face significant funding challenges. So I wouldn't say there are any specificities in Quebec. And I say as to conquering, world markets with technologies, the challenges are as big for the Halifax area or Toronto area. It's all facing the same worldwide challenges. We have 4 members left. Ms. Sinclair de Gagné.
Madame Méthode, d'abord.
First, I am very sorry for everything you've experienced in the last months. Indeed, I can personally testify that it's been unpleasant. It's happened to me too. Now, in the case of SDTC, I would like to repeat and I would like to rectify in regard to recent questions. Indeed, you left in 2021. But what I meant to say is there was already some conduct, behaviors And I'd just like to mention one name, Mr. Cavalier. I think you hired him, and then he was dropped very quickly without many apparent reasons. And I'll leave it there. But I would like us to concentrate on the fact that in listening to you today, and I said so in a recent intervention, what's happened at SDTC is quite serious, to the point where Minister Champagne chose to abolish this. Now, in listening to you, SDDC and what went on there was very rigorous, and we heard from the Auditor General, and before that, Raymond Chabot, and leads us to believe it's the contrary. Quite frankly, I think there's quite a difference between your testimony today and the reports from the Auditor General of Canada and Raymond Chabot. So this is a quick question. Do you think Mr. Champagne made a mistake by abolishing SDTC? Well, Minister, you're an expert. I'm not an expert in abolishing or not abolishing. No, but you're an expert in SDTC. No, I'm not. I'm an expert in clean tech. So I thought, in your words, you had been an expert in clean tech. So the biggest funding institution in Canada, SDTC, was abolished. Was it a good decision? I think the businesses merit to be supported just like the similar companies in the U.S. should. I think we need to find a way to continue that support. Political decisions connected with that belong to the politicians. I'm not a politician. So the conclusions of the Auditor General, which gave Mr. Champagne sufficient reason to abolish SDTC, along with the reports he'd seen earlier, are those also erroneous or partial? Is that your belief? I cannot tell you if it's erroneous or partial. All I can talk about is when I was there. I've not been there for 3 years. There's some good things. There's always room for improvement. I don't know of any organization where there's not room for improvement.
This, please.
Thank you for remembering me this time. I deeply appreciate it. I also want to just put it on the record that I do apologize for some of the behavior we've seen in this committee today, and also just the reality of being a citizen that becomes part of the public gaze. But I guess, we are trying to figure out what happened here and get some clarity. And one of the things that I always fall back on these very contentious political issues is process, and what do we need to fix in the long term to make sure that we have systems that Canadians can understand and respond to in a positive way. It does concern me hearing largely the Conservatives just ripping apart public servants and process. I think it's very important that we talk about the process problems and the accountability we need to have to Canadians without ripping apart the people who work for the government. So I'm just wondering, in the time that you were on the board, did you review the processes that you had and the issues that might arise from that? And if you could just clearly denote for the committee, what mechanisms did you have on your term that would allow you to flag any serious concerns that you had? And how easy was it to use the mechanisms? If we could get a little clarity on that, I think that would help us understand what we need to see more effective change in the future.
Thank you for your question, and thank you also for your support, Mrs. Desgagnés and Ms. Blaney. It's much appreciated. Each year, or in general each year, there's an annual review. We draw up a business plan, a strategic plan. I think that's classic in all boards, and that is an opportunity for discussion. Was there a detailed review of processes? We have to understand that oftentimes these analyses are done in subcommittees. I only sat on one committee, which was the program review, and due to my, technical knowledge, the engineer, someone who is knowledgeable about finance. There's a governance committee that dealt with governance, but I never sat on that committee. So I think it's a question for the governance committee. But I can say that the annual review process and the business plan, these are processes where members can make known their viewpoints, and for members were able to contribute to updates, and there are changes to programs made, and the Auditor General mentions this. So my answer would be in part, yes, but not in as much detail. But yes, there was that, but not perfect, because no organization is perfect. And if you'll allow me, an observation or advice. One thing I much appreciated at the CIB is putting in place a registry of real conflicts, potential conflicts, and a detailed record for each member. Now, we did not have that in STTC, and it would have helped us. And I think that I have to cut you off. There will be members asking you questions about that.
Mr. McCauley and then Mr. Erskine-Smith. Mr. McCauley, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thanks, Chair. I want to follow up on a question from Mr. Cooper that I don't think we got answered, was if you had read the SDTC Act that lays out rules and guidance regarding conflict.
Je comprends pas la question.
I do not understand the question, Mr. Chairman.
I've paused the clock for you to ask your question.
Je m'excuse, monsieur. Sincèrement, je comprends pas.
Quite sincerely, I do not understand the question.
I asked you very specifically if you had read the SDTC Foundation Act that stated very clearly about prohibiting board members from receiving any financial gain or other gains.
Moi, ce qu'on m'a expliqué.
What was explained to me was that I had to recuse myself and declare my conflicts.
Asking, did you read that?
Écoute, ça fait très longtemps.
It's been a long time. And generally, I do read those things. And I have enough experience to read the documents that I need to read as a board member. And if I had not been, acceptable as a member of the board, I would expect that ultimately the minister would have said that.
General. And you agree with it?
Il y a des points qui sont valides.
There are points that are valid. There are points that merit examination. And as to the list of conflict of interest.
If you say there are points that are valid, do you believe there's invalid points?
Non. Ce que j'ai dit, c'est qu'il y a des...
No. I said there are points that are valid. And what I said is when I look at the list of conflicts of interest attributed to me, at the time of the votes, that analysis was not done. And that is why I prepared a table which you will see later, which settles that issue. I think the Auditor General...
Co-founder of Ecofiscal, I think?
Ecofuel.
Ecofuel, Quebec. And another organization that I see received once, and you were co-founder with Minister Guilbeault.
No.
I understand.
C'est faux.
No, that's wrong. I'm co-founder, but not with Mr. Guilbeault.
OK. Laissez-moi vous aider.
Let me help you here. There's Ecotech Quebec, which is a not-for-profit in Quebec, and I'm co-founder with two entrepreneurs. Mr. Guilbeault is not there.
Once the Liberals came to power, the amount of money you received for that program multiplied by 350% or increased by 350%. One of the notes I'm reading from the grants and contributions is the duty of the recipient to relocate or reallocate or redistribute the grant or contributions to third parties. Could you provide for this committee who you redistributed or reallocated the $3 million? I don't need it right now, but could you provide in writing that?
Je ne comprends pas le 3 millions.
I don't understand the 3 million. Who was the 3 million given to?
But straight from the Treasury Board.
OK. Alors, Ecotech,
3.146, actually.
Ecotech
So Ecotech is a not-for-profit that I co-funded with other entrepreneurs. Ecotech has a board of members.
Distribute or reallocate the monies that you received to third parties.
monsieur. Ecotech ne distribue.
Ecotech does not distribute money. And it has nothing to do with SDTC.
Directly from the Grants and Contribution website, published by Treasury Board, is a duty of the recipient, yourself, to reallocate or redistribute the grant or contribution to third parties. So would you provide?
No.
So you're saying that
No.
this is right from their website.
Écoutez,
I was a founding member, volunteer, founding member of Ecotech Quebec. It's volunteer work.
Understand some of our concern. We have the Auditor General pointing out lots of conflict. You have Treasury Board stating money that went to your foundation, which is supposed to be passed on to other groups that you're now saying. But no,
ce n'est pas ma fondation. C'est la fondation.
It's not my foundation.
When we are Canadians are lining up at food banks at record amounts, difficulty getting
J'ai
by
énormément de
day to
respect
day.
pour tous les Canadiens et tous les
We have the Auditor
Canadiennes.
General reporting
Écoutez, je
$400
pense qu'on va
million.
devoir quitter, Monsieur le Président.
I think we're going to have to leave.
They're at the table, but you're not allowed, as part of your agreement, to be here to be waiving the offer questions. Thank you very much. Ma'am, do you understand the concerns expressed by taxpayers and myself?
Avec ça, monsieur, je suis la.
I'm the co-founder of a not-for-profit that belongs to its members.
About this whole scandal?
Non, je peux dire que j'ai énormément de respect.
I can say that I have lots of respect. My parents paid taxes their entire lives and raised their children properly. You have before you somebody who has a great deal of respect for all Canadians and who feels privileged to live in Canada in a democracy.
You have the floor for 5 minutes. Mr. Erskine-Smith appears to be Is there a member who would like to fill in for Mr. Erskine-Smith? No, he's not small. He's Well, it is all right. You've got just under 5 minutes, Ms. Kalin.
I'll fill in until Mr. Erskine-Smith. I'm sure that he's attending question period right now as we speak. I know that Monsieur Drouin had a statement in question period, so I'm sure that Nate is really paying attention to what Mr. Erskine-Smith, well, to what Mr. Francis Drouin has to say. So I will, as I am the last questioner, I will ask our esteemed witness here today if she has. She's obviously been in this committee for a very, very long time, and thank you for your time today. Is there anything that you would like to say to Canadians with respect to what we have discussed today, with respect to your role? I give you the floor to help us understand why you think that you are here today and what challenges you have had to face, and what is your message for Canadians with respect to everything that you have heard today.
Mais je ferai d'abord
First, I have a general comment on the fact that climate change is a reality. It is going to deeply change our societies. Immigration will be different. Water levels will rise. forest fires, and Canadian entrepreneurs have solutions that can change our ways of consuming and polluting. And we have to believe in those Canadian entrepreneurs. We need to support them. And we have to have among them the best in the world. And I sincerely believe that if the discussion on SDTC, which is not easy, I mean, there are things that have been put into question. Parliamentarians have paid attention to this, and I think we need to look in towards the future. There's a worldwide race technologically to combat climate change, and forthcoming years will be difficult. We're already seeing this. We've seen this in the fires in Jasper, the flooding. Territories, being lost. There are already areas in Canada that are less habitable. Same in the States. It's not just about the poor countries, but the rich countries do need to bring about solutions. And one thing we can do is clean tech entrepreneurship, and we need to focus on that. That said, if we need to improve the programs, be more demanding, I'm on side. I'm even on side with Mr. Perkins on that, because collectively we have to raise the bar. And I'm always available to answer those questions. I say it will be a pleasure to go to Halifax and show him the extraordinary companies in the Halifax area that are working very hard. Mr. Perkins, do you have a comment? I can listen to you. No, this is your time. Then it would be my pleasure. And he should be proud of all of those companies in his riding. And I'm here for that. I've no other mission. I've raised all my kids. I won't tell you how many because I think you'd pass out, Mr. Perkins. But all of my kids were raised with the values: honesty, fighting climate change, respect for women, respect for differences, contribute. People who do nothing never make mistakes. It's people who do things that make mistakes. It comes with responsibility and accountable. And I'm here today to respond to that. And in spite of yourselves, you have an ally, Mr. Perkins.
Thank you very much for that, Madame. I just wanted to say, it's really interesting how the impact of what happens in Parliament impacts business. But I do share the concern of parliamentarians in public accounts specifically about how taxpayer dollars are used. And with the transition now going forward, what are your thoughts about that? And what are the implications that you think we should be looking for as parliamentarians with that respect?
Alors, je vais me permettre de vous donner.
Well, I'd like to share the results of an analysis we just conducted. Right now, we're looking at the oil sector, all of the sector also of advanced technologies. The cloud servers are more and more contributors to CO2, and with the industrial revolution we have before us, which is going to affect the Internet of Objects, microelectronics, the electrification of transport, we continue to produce CO2. We're going to have to be, more creative. We can't just point the finger at only some industries, because the transformation of our economy will give rise to more CO2, and be it a CO2 that's produced by microelectronics or the chemical industry, is still the same CO2 in the atmosphere. So we will have to raise our standards. We will need to understand that there are points that have never been touched that are now being touched. And I invite you all to openness and to a structured and rigorous contribution to be able to further develop technologies. It's all very well to have an electric car, but if it is based on coal or oil and other, it's no longer electric. Thank you very much. If you have any other comments, Ms. Meto, you can send those in.